I woke up to the rhythmic beep of a monitor and the scent of disinfectant hanging heavy in the air. My throat felt dry, my limbs heavy, and for a moment I couldn't quite remember where I was. Then the sterile white ceiling tiles and the weight of the 4 in my arm reminded me I was in the emergency wing of UC Health Hospital in Denver. I had collapsed at work 2 days earlier, in the middle of reviewing a supplier contract. 1 minute I was standing, the next I was falling, and everything went dark. They told me I had passed out from exhaustion. My blood pressure had plummeted, and several tests were now underway because my readings were abnormal. I wasn't worried, not about the illness. I was used to pressure, used to carrying the weight of others. What scared me more was the silence, and that the one person who should have been by my side hadn't even called. Derek. We'd been married for nearly 12 years. In public, I was a full-time housewife, the quiet, supportive woman behind a hard-working man. In truth, I was the CEO of Aegis Medical Supplies, a regional distribution company with contracts spanning 5 states. I kept my identity private for years, partly to avoid attention, mostly because I knew Derek couldn't handle it. Still, I had texted him after I was admitted. Just 5 words. I'm in the hospital. Call me. Nothing. No reply. No visit. Not even a missed call. I was lying in a hospital bed with an 4 in one arm and the news of a possible tumor hanging over my head. And the man who once promised to hold my hand through anything hadn't even bothered to check in. Then, on the 3rd day, he showed up. I had just finished my morning blood work when the nurse opened the door and said softly, "You have a visitor." I looked up, heart foolishly hoping he'd come to make things right. But when Derek walked in, dressed in his usual office casual button-down and hands shoved in his pockets, there was no warmth in his eyes, no smile, no flowers. "No, are you okay?" He barely glanced at me before setting a manila folder on the bedside table. "These are divorce papers," he said. "I've spoken to an attorney. The house, the SUV, and the checking account are fair game. I think we can do this quickly, especially since, well, I'm not sure how long you'll even be around." My fingers froze on the bedsheet. For a second, I thought I had misheard. But he just stood there, calm, like he was discussing the weather. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply looked at the folder, then up at him. And something inside me, something that had been cracking slowly for years, finally shattered and reformed into steel. I smiled, just a little. "Take whatever you want," I said quietly. "Thank you for coming." He looked surprised. Maybe he expected a breakdown, begging, tears. Maybe he thought I'd be too weak, too scared, too dependent. But he had no idea who I really was. He turned to leave. Just before walking out, he muttered, "Not like you have a choice anyway." When the door clicked shut behind him, I reached for the hospital phone with a steady hand. My voice was calm as I spoke to the nurse. "Can I make call outside the city?" She nodded. I dialed a number I hadn't used in months, but had memorized long ago. When the line picked up, I spoke 3 words. "Isaac, it's time." There was a pause on the other end. Then a deep voice replied, "I've been waiting for this call. Just say the word." I lay back against the pillow and closed my eyes. For the first time in years, I felt strangely at peace. I first met Derek at a neighborhood barbecue, thrown by mutual friends. I had just turned 30 and had recently accepted a job relocation to Denver. On the surface, he was warm, attentive, the kind of man who remembered the smallest things, like how I took my coffee with oat milk and no sugar, or the fact that I always kept a pen in my left sleeve. He laughed easily, listened well, and made me feel seen. Back then, I thought I was lucky to find someone so in tune with me. We got married within a year. It felt like the right thing, natural even. At that time, I was already laying the groundwork for Aegis Medical Supplies, operating out of a small rented office space with nothing but a vision and 2 part-time assistants. I didn't tell Derek the full extent of what I did, not out of deception, but because I wanted peace. I had seen too many men shrink in the face of a successful woman. I didn't want to test whether Derek was one of them. So I let him believe I worked in administration. I wore simple clothes, packed lunches, and smiled when he called me his housewife who had too much time. It was easier that way, and I thought maybe, just maybe, he would eventually appreciate the quiet strength behind it all. But things changed quickly after the honeymoon phase ended. Derek started complaining about his job, about how his boss didn't see his potential, how promotions were given to suck-ups and women playing the game. I encouraged him to apply elsewhere, gently at first. When an admin role opened up at Aegis that paid twice his current salary, I even spoke to HR myself. It was an easy job, stable, flexible. He had the skills. But the moment I suggested it, his face twisted with offense. You think I'm so pathetic I need my wife to get me a job? What am I to you, your charity case? I tried to explain, but he cut me off. Don't try to run our marriage like your boardroom. I'm not one of your employees. That night, I remember sitting in the bathroom with the door locked, staring at my reflection. My blouse was still tucked in from work. My lipstick faded, and in my eyes, something uncertain was beginning to form. Not fear, not sadness, but doubt. A whisper that maybe, just maybe, I had made a terrible mistake. I gave him space, time, understanding. I even started depositing $1,500 a month into his personal account. Living allowance, I said casually. But every month, it vanished within 2 weeks. I knew it wasn't groceries or gas. I saw the sneaker boxes piling up in the closet. I noticed the gaming chair, the monthly subscription charges to apps I'd never heard of. Still, I said nothing. I was exhausted. I was flying to 3 states in 5 days, finalizing a new distribution deal, and returning home only to be met with silence or worse, subtle resentment. He never once asked, "Are you okay?" Not when I came home pale from jet lag. Not when I worked late into the night on a new FDA contract. Not even when my hands shook from fatigue while chopping vegetables. In Derek's eyes, I was still the woman who stayed at home. Still his wife who had time to clean, cook, and fold towels the way he liked. One time, when my mother came to visit and offered to help around the house, he came home, dropped his bag on the table, and muttered, "Another guest? I need peace and quiet in my own home." My mother froze. She had driven 2 hours to bring me my favorite soup and flowers from her garden. I remember feeling the sting in my throat when she gently said, "I think I'll go, sweetheart. Maybe another time." I didn't stop her. After the door closed, I turned to Derek. My voice was barely above a whisper. That was my mother. He didn't even look at me. So, I didn't ask her to come. That night, I cried in bed, facing the wall. He didn't reach out, didn't say goodnight, just turned off the light and fell asleep. That was the night something in me quietly died. There are certain moments that stay with you, not because they were loud or dramatic, but because they broke something inside you so quietly it was almost elegant. For me, it was a Tuesday night. I had flown in from Salt Lake City after finalizing a 3-year equipment deal. My body was stiff from travel, my head pounding from missed meals and boardroom tension. I walked through the front door just after 8 p.m. I hadn't even taken off my heels when Derek, standing in the kitchen, held up one of his shirts and snapped, "You couldn't even iron this? Do you even do anything around here?" I blinked at him, stunned. My suitcase was still at the door. My blouse was wrinkled from a 12-hour day. And here he was, angry about shirt. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. He didn't see it. He never did. I used to be a woman who negotiated with hospital directors, sat on supplier boards, and signed contracts worth more than our mortgage. Now, I was being scolded like a teenager who forgot her chores. I said nothing. I had learned that any attempt to explain would be twisted, weaponized. Silence was safer, but silence has a cost. It chips away at you, slowly, steadily, until you're hollow. That week, I started feeling dizzy, lightheaded. I thought it was just stress, lack of rest. Too many back-to-back meetings. I took vitamins, drank water, pushed through. Then came the fever. I collapsed in the upstairs hallway, barely able to crawl to the bedroom. Derek stood in the doorway, arms crossed. No concern, no alarm, just that same flat voice. Hurry up and get better. I don't have time to take care of you. He turned and left the room. I lay there for a long time, burning, sweating, shaking, and thinking, this isn't love. This isn't even partnership. This is a slow death, dressed in wedding vows. I didn't tell anyone, not even my mother. She called often, still hopeful, still gentle. How are you, darling? She'd ask. Busy, I always replied. Everything's fine. But everything was not fine. The worst part wasn't the loneliness. It was the shame, the humiliation of knowing I had built an empire from scratch, only to come home each night to a man who thought ironing a shirt was the highest form of domestic loyalty. I had grown powerful in the outside world, but smaller and smaller in my own home. Then came the Saturday that broke the last thread. My mother came to visit again. She had cooked my favorite stew, beef and pearl onion, just the way I liked it as a child. She brought fresh strawberries and a bouquet of peonies. We sat on the couch, just chatting. I even laughed for the first time in weeks. Then Derek came in. He took one look at her and sighed, loud, exaggerated. Again, he muttered, dropping his bag on the floor. Why is there always someone in this house? My mother's smile faltered, but she stayed composed. I was just dropping something off for Sabrina. I'll be going soon. He didn't respond to her. Instead, he opened the fridge, grabbed a soda, and, without even glancing our way, said, I don't want dinner with outsiders. Some people just don't know how to respect boundaries. The air turned cold. My mother placed the bowl down, gently. I think I should go, she said softly, rising. I walked her to the door in silence. She gave my hand a squeeze and whispered, You deserve better, sweetheart. When the door shut behind her, I turned to Derek. My voice trembled with fury. Do you realize how cruel that was? He shrugged. I'm just being honest. If you can't handle that, maybe you're the one with the problem. I stood there in the kitchen, the light above flickering slightly, the scent of stew still lingering, and I knew there was nothing left to save. Not love, not marriage, not even respect. What we had wasn't broken. It was gone. The collapse didn't feel dramatic. There were no sirens in my ears, no slow-motion fall like in the movies. Just stillness. 1 minute, I was standing in the conference room, presenting a new logistics structure to our partners in Seattle. The next, the floor seemed to vanish beneath me. Blackness took over. When I came to, I was in a hospital bed, for in my arm, oxygen taped under my nose, the world blurry like a watercolor washed in rain. They ran tests. Monitors beeped. Doctors murmured quietly at the foot of my bed. I wasn't surprised. I had been pushing myself too hard for too long. But when the oncologist came in 2 days later, closed the door behind him, and sat beside my bed with a folder in his hands, I felt something shift. There's a tumor in your pancreas, he said gently. The good news is we caught it early, but you'll need to start treatment immediately. I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I nodded like he'd just told me I had a cold. I was calm until he left the room. Then I stared at the ceiling, letting the reality settle in. I wasn't afraid of dying. I was afraid of dying alone. That night, I texted Derek. 1 sentence. I'm in the hospital. I need to talk. No reply. I called. Voicemail. No flowers. No visit. No sign that the man I had shared 12 years of my life with even cared I was fighting for it. I started treatment anyway. The nausea came first, then the insomnia, then the fatigue that clung to my bones like lead. My body began to shrink. My hair thinned. My skin turned pale. And still I told no one, not my mother, not my team. I told everyone I was on an extended work trip. Even my assistant believed I was closing a deal in Arizona. I fought alone. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, as I lay in bed after a brutal infusion, the door opened. Derek walked in. I blinked, thought I was hallucinating, but he stood there, clean-shaven, pressed shirt, folder in hand. "You're here," I croaked, voice shredded by meds. He didn't come to the bedside. He didn't touch me. Instead, he placed the folder on the table and said, with the cold precision of a man discussing real estate, "I filed for divorce. The house and the car should be in my name. You're not going to need them much longer anyway." I didn't move. My fingers curled tightly in the sheets. So this was it. Not even a pretense. No pity. Just greed, dressed as efficiency. I looked at him, eyes steady. "Take what you want," I whispered. He hesitated, maybe confused by how easy it was. He shrugged and turned. "Not like you have a choice anyway." The moment the door clicked shut behind him, I reached for the hospital phone. I dialed a number I hadn't used in years but had never deleted. Isaac Monroe, my CFO, my most loyal ally, the only one who knew the full truth. "Isaac," I said, my voice steady, almost detached, "I need your help." There was a pause, then he replied, "I've been waiting for this call. Just say the word." The next morning, Isaac came to my room. No flowers, no hugs, just a leather briefcase and the quiet strength of a man who had seen this day coming. He placed the briefcase on the table and opened it. Inside, full documentation, contract terminations, asset transfer notices. "You're sure?" he asked softly. I looked him in the eye. For 12 years, I've carried that man, paid his debts, bought him shoes, vacations, even covered his cousin's tuition. I built an empire and let him live in the shadow of it because I loved him. I picked up a pen. My hand trembled only slightly. I don't love him anymore. And with that, I signed the first letter, terminating the exclusive contract between Aegis Medical and North Stream Logistics, Derek's company. By 8 a.m. Monday, it would hit their inbox like a tidal wave. By 3 p.m., their entire supply chain would begin to collapse. And Derek would have no idea that the woman he had left alone in a hospital bed had just taken down his world without raising her voice. Monday morning arrived like any other, but at exactly 8 a.m., North Stream Logistics received an email with a subject line that would dismantle Derek's career in under 24 hours. Termination of contract, immediate action required. The contract in question? A multi-million-dollar distribution agreement with Aegis Medical Supplies, my company. The very contract Derek had bragged about for over a year, claiming it was his greatest career achievement. He used to strut into networking events with puffed-up pride, boasting that he had locked down a major medical supplier through sheer negotiation talent. What he didn't know, what he never thought to ask, was that the woman who signed that deal was sleeping just one wall away. And now she was signing it off. By 3 p.m., I received a call from North Stream CEO, Mr. Peterson. His voice was tight, controlled, but the panic leaked through. "We're surprised by the termination, Ms. Hale. If possible, we'd like to understand the reason behind this." I leaned back against the hospital pillows, for still in my arm, and responded with the calm authority of a woman who held the pen on the contract and the power to shred it. "I've been made aware that one of your senior employees has engaged in behavior that's deeply concerning. Disrespect toward female colleagues, irregularities in asset usage, and personal misconduct that could jeopardize client trust." There was a pause, then a question. "May I ask who this employee is?" I let the silence hang for a beat, then said it clearly, "Derek Hale." I could almost hear the blood drain from Peterson's face. That afternoon, Derek came home late. His usual swagger was gone, replaced by something quieter, something rattled. He didn't speak, just walked into the kitchen and opened the fridge like muscle memory. I was already sitting at the table, flipping through a hardcover novel. I didn't look up. After a few minutes, he said softly, "I got laid off." I closed the book, set it down slowly, then stood up and walked to the desk drawer. From inside, I pulled an envelope and placed it on the kitchen counter beside him. He looked at me, confused. What's this? I met his eyes. The reason you got laid off. He opened it with trembling hands. His eyes scanned the top of the termination notice, the signature line bearing my name. I'm the CEO of Aegis Medical, Derek. The company you thought you had won over. The company you claimed as your biggest client. That was me. He looked at me like I had just set the house on fire. I didn't flinch. I paid every bill, cleared your credit card debt, transferred you $1,500 a month while your actual salary barely covered rent. I even paid your nephew's college fees when your cousin called crying. I did all of that because I loved you. I stepped back, my voice ice cold now. But you never loved me. You loved the lifestyle, the ease, the silence, and you mistook it for weakness. He backed up slightly, as if the truth itself was physically pushing him. This can't be real, he whispered. I smiled, just enough to show him I was still in control. That envelope also contains the counter-divorce filing. You'll find the asset division, your move-out notice, 30 days. And one last detail, the $3,200 monthly mortgage? You'll need to figure that out on your own now. The silence in the kitchen grew heavy. Derek didn't cry. He didn't shout. He simply stood there, unraveling. Because, for the first time in our marriage, he wasn't looking at the woman who loved him. He was looking at the woman who had just erased him, methodically, lawfully, and without ever raising her voice. 3 nights later, the hospital phone rang just after midnight. I had just finished my 2nd round of chemo. My body felt like it was stitched together with pain. But when I saw the caller ID, I didn't feel fear or pity. Derek. I let it ring twice before answering. Sabrina, please. His voice cracked. Don't hang up. I said nothing. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I thought you were just some woman living off me. I didn't know, I didn't see you. Still, I said nothing. I've lost everything. The house is going into foreclosure. North Stream didn't just fire me. They circulated a formal misconduct report to every partner company. No one will touch me now. His voice trembled. Please, please, just hear me out. I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't know how strong you were. I didn't know you were the reason I ever had anything at all. I leaned back on the pillows, turned on speakerphone, and stared at the ceiling. Not because I was moved, but because I wanted to hear every broken syllable. The desperation, the collapse. It was the apology I had begged for in silence for years. And now, I received it not in a moment of clarity, but in a moment of desperation. I don't want Alyssa, he continued, voice choking now. She blocked me when the scandal hit. Her family threatened legal action if I didn't disappear. I have no one, Sabrina. I need you. I opened my eyes slowly. You had 12 years to love me, I said softly. 12 years to listen, to share, to respect, to grow. But you chose not to. He tried again. But people change. You didn't change. I cut him off. You were just exposed. He fell silent. I'm not angry anymore, Derek, I continued, because you don't have power over me. I know who I am now. His voice dropped to a whisper. So this is it. This is peace. And with that, I pressed end call, then block. That same morning, I emailed my attorney. I requested a no-contact clause be added to the divorce filings, and began preparing a civil suit for breach of marital duty and emotional abandonment, legal in Colorado with sufficient documentation and medical vulnerability. Not because I wanted money, because I wanted dignity restored. A week later, I was discharged for at-home recovery. My strength returned slowly, but my clarity had never been sharper. Derek tried everything, emails, social media, even showing up at Aegis's office, but security had already been briefed. He never made it past the front desk. Each failed attempt only confirmed one thing. He never loved me. He just didn't know how to live without me. Rumors of his downfall spread through Denver's business circles like wildfire. His misconduct file from North Stream, once sealed, had quietly been shared among vendors and clients. No one wanted the risk. He moved into a dingy one-bedroom near Aurora. Bill collectors flooded his phone. Job offers never came. As for Alyssa, the intern he once whispered with behind closed doors, she vanished from LinkedIn and Instagram just days after the scandal broke. Word was her family settled quietly to avoid litigation. And me? I returned to the Aegis headquarters on a crisp Tuesday morning. When I stepped into the main conference room, the entire staff stood and clapped. Isaac handed me a coffee mug with gold letters that read, "Welcome back, boss." I smiled, not because I needed the applause, but because I had earned it. Not just the title, the respect, the space. That weekend, I sat on my porch, watching the lake shimmer in the late afternoon sun. Isaac joined me, 2 mugs of tea in hand. "Ever thought about getting married again?" he asked, half joking. I looked at him, then out over the still water. A breeze rustled the pine trees, soft and steady. "Maybe," I said, "but not today. Today, I'm exactly where I want to be." He didn't say anything more, and he didn't have to, because in that moment I knew true happiness begins the day you stop apologizing for your strength.